Now, given that you're an expert in security and this is kind of what you do incident response for a tech company. I kind of want to ask you now if we could turn to some of the sector tools in that area. So right now I'm going to move over to the technology spending intention survey. And this is the one where we track our basic spending patterns over a lot of different sectors. And let's start, I guess, with the security sector. So we track, observability tools in security and in the analytics sector. So we'll jump to that in a second. But let's just start straight off with security. So if we go to the information security sector, it is a crowded field, as you can see here, and I'm going to go ahead and expand this. In terms of the y-axis, this is spending momentum. So this is essentially those who say they're increasing or adopting the new technology with greater numbers. And then this x-axis here is about pervasion or kind of general citation penetration in the base. So rough approximation for market penetration. Microsoft standing way out here in a lot of ways. Cisco obviously highly penetrated in the market, but not a very remarkable kind of speed in the security sector with spending velocity. And then there's Wiz, this kind of interesting standout that has high spending momentum for us, high net score, but not quite as pervasive yet, but it's growing. And if you look at this trail, it continues to kind of move to the right. So any reactions to some of these vendors or any of the other several vendors you see on the screen and kind of tell us which tools in your security stack are really getting a lot of the sunshine right now.
Well, I know, like you mentioned, with Wiz kind of standing out there, I think as a lot of teams, a lot of organizations migrated to the cloud, they realized they had a gap
Yeah.
when it came to visibility in their on-prem versus cloud infrastructure.
Hmm.
And Wiz has done a great job trying to fill that gap and bringing folks on board with that. Sometimes people realize a little too late they've had an incident, but sometimes it's better late than never.
Hmm.
Okta, of course, super interesting seeing them grow there.
Hmm.
The increase we've seen with regards to, and the dates look pretty right. Fall 2022, there was this massive increase in smishing-based attacks,
Hmm.
and companies realized, hey, not only do we need to strengthen our single sign-on process, but have additional logging and response capabilities as part of that. Okta has been a huge help there.
Hmm.
And of course, they integrate with things like YubiKeys that make phishing incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to happen at that point. Splunk's growth is interesting too. People are migrating to the cloud,
Hmm.
and of course, when you send a bunch of data to Splunk Cloud, the cost associated with that goes up significantly.
Yeah.
Some folks are finding that out the hard way
Hmm.
after it's already migrated, but
Yeah.
this stuff growth can be really hard to predict when it comes to how much data we're sending somewhere, and it catches you kind of after the fact.
Hmm. Yeah, I want to needle into that for a second. So we have an adopt replace reasoning question. So anytime someone says they're adopting or replacing something, we ask them why, right? In a rough estimation. And if we go here and we look up Splunk, for instance, I find this kind of interesting. Of course, we got to uncheck Adobe. But if you go to Splunk, maybe if I refresh and we go to Splunk. Oh, I know why. Sorry, it's under Cisco.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's right. See, that's these acquisitions are always changing. So that's a nice one to have on my recording here. If we go to Splunk, we track them in the analytics and the information security sector. But if you look here, and we'll check both of them, the reason people are replacing them in sort of standout reason here is always product cost and ROI. And this is true for a lot of vendors, but I think for Splunk especially, this has always been the number one reason people replace this tool. And so it's something they I guess it's a driving force when things get too expensive.
Very
Let's go
much
back.
so.
Yeah, let's go back to this information security sector. You talked about Wiz. It may be a good time to kind of showcase too. We have a new survey we've put out, these syndicated surveys formerly called the Market Array. We're calling the Observatory Report soon. But we did the CNAP and the CSPM space recently, and in here, Wiz is a standout, right? It's very high on our momentum here, also spending momentum. And a number of folks, when we scroll down to most desired and most innovative vendors, it's up here. These write-in responses, people say Wiz is right up here with CrowdStrike and Microsoft, right up here with CrowdStrike, Microsoft, and Palo in terms of a vendor they would consolidate around if given the chance to start over. So let's talk a little bit about Wiz, if you don't mind. This is a vendor we get some commentary on, but fairly newcomer to the space. Give me a little more granular detail, if you can, about What's good about this tool? What's really drawing people to it as opposed to some other tools that do similar things? Why is it kind of the new kid on the block everyone's interested in?
I mean, the two things that come top of mind was their false positive rate seems to be quite acceptable and very good versus some of the other tools we've seen out there where we're alerting on things that like there's no business alerting on that thing. Why are we cluttering my queue and my logs with something that's unactionable, if you will?
Hmm.
The the other one that comes to mind is the findings that it does produce are they're fruitful.
Hmm.
And from an incident response standpoint, I know what I'm responding to. There's not a whole lot of guesswork and ambiguity I've got to figure out, especially when I deal with things like resolve time and containment time.
Hmm.
So if Wiz pops an alert, it's something that we need to look at promptly because there's a possibility it's going to go a direction we don't want to go, right? Um,
Yeah.
those were two of the things that definitely stood out.
Yeah, you're kind of speaking more to the quality of of the insights you're getting from this tool, right? It's you can kind of trust that it's not going to be junk, it's not a false positive. And then when it gives you insights, you really need to take it seriously because it's probably found something interesting. So it's sort of a quality issue is what I'm hearing.
Indeed.
Hmm. Yeah, and what are any downsides of Wiz? I mean, any sort of things that concern you about it or shortcomings you
I
think?
mean, not yet. We're pretty new in our deployment,
Hmm.
but nothing top of mind right away. It's been a good experience so far.
Yeah. What other tools were you considering when you were doing evaluation of Wiz? What were you kind of baking it off against?
Oh, I know Dark Trace
Hmm.
was in there. That's one of the other ones that was least top of mind. To be honest, I'd have to look back at my notes.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. And see, Dark Trace is one of these that's about as pervasive as Wiz, but spinning momentum is dropping, right? There's less momentum here for this vendor, kind of hovering at the 20% range, which isn't bad. It's still middle of the pack if you look about it, but definitely on a downward trend.